Good morning and welcome to Bold Business. I'm your host, David Grasso, the regular host of the show. I work for Gen FKD, which is a nonprofit dedicating to helping young people get the skills they need to succeed in the new economy. I'm joined by none other than Sarah Hill. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
If you watch this show, you would know that she is the CEO of Bookster and a friend of Bold and also my favorite co-host, but don't tell anyone.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I just told everyone.
That's on the record now.
Well, anyway, we usually do headlines in our first segment, but we have quite a long list of guests today, so let's get right to it. Our first guest is Jay Abraham. He's the founder and CEO of the Abraham Group. He spent his entire career solving problems and fixing businesses, and he's here to talk about what makes a business successful. Welcome to the show, Jay.
Thank you, guys.
Welcome.
So what are the typical problems? Any business, like
where do you
universal
start, right?
problems, whether you sell widgets or you're a consultant.
Oh, sure. There's probably 9 major ones. Number 1 is they don't sell enough. Number 2, margins. Number 3, they're not distinctive. Number 4, their marketing sucks. Number 5, they have no strategy. Number 6, they have no really great value proposition. Number 7, they're tactical and short-sighted, not playing a long-term game. You want me to go on?
Man, it sounds like a train wreck.
I think it sounds awesome.
Well, actually, it's wonderful because if you think about it, many of them survive making all those mistakes. The moment you stop, it's automatic growth for the business. So it's actually much easier to grow than to work hard thwarting it. It's very interesting.
So what are the key metrics when you walk into a business? By the way, I'm a small business owner, so
Okay,
I could sense that you could walk into my business and be like, all right, this needs to change, this needs to change, this needs to change. What are the key metrics that you look at to decide if something's succeeding or not? Is it like revenue or?
Well done. First thing we do is we'll split a business into 2 parts. What you're doing now and what you should be doing in lieu of or in addition. So we take a look at everything you're doing, and I've been trained in process improvement and optimization, and we isolate how each sub-element is performing because most elements can be made to perform higher. So the first thing you do is maximize whatever you're doing. For example, your marketing. Change a headline, change your results. Change a positioning, you change your results. Change a subject line, you change your results. Change a headline on a website, you change your results.
Some people don't believe in marketing, so.
Well, I mean, all I know is that I have
I mean, I've heard that.
I have about $20 billion of improvements that would augur the other way. I mean,
Yeah.
if they don't, they probably don't believe in growth and success. But let's go there. Let's say they build their whole business on referrals or word of mouth.
Yeah.
Almost nobody has even one referral generating strategy system that is adhered to on a continuous basis. And they'll screw around with all kinds of other marketing when a referral generated buyer buys immediately, negotiates less, buys more often, is more interesting to deal with, and costs nothing. So if you're going to believe in referrals, then you should be strategic about it. Most people don't have one. In my travels, I've been doing it for 40 years, we found 93 different referral generating systems you could use, cost nothing. So whatever you're going to do, maximize it, optimize it. Don't just episodically and erratically accept whatever comes.
So, Jay, you seem like you're the king of first impressions. You're smartly dressed. Your business card, you guys can't see it here. It's like
amazing.
the nicest card stock I've ever seen in my life. Why do first impressions matter when it comes to business?
Well, there's a lot of research, and it's not my research, but I think the goal in your business life is to be seen as preeminent, be seen really as the most trusted source, as the only viable solution, as a leader in terms of the relationship. Human beings are silently begging to be led, but there's a caveat. They want to be led by somebody they feel inherently have their best interest at heart. And I think you've got to be authoritative without being arrogant. I think you have to be authentic. I think you have to be externally focused and want to listen and understand and evaluate and appreciate that no two people see life the same way. I've done a lot of work with influencers for millennials. And
That was our next question.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Psychic.
millennial
There we
millennial
go.
business. Go ahead. The last question.
please.
No, tell us about it.
Well, I mean, I've helped people like Damon John and Ramit Sethi and Dave Asprey and a lot of people. And one of the challenges with millennials is that I don't think, even though they're connected, they've never been trained to empathically appreciate with depth the other person's perspectives. I can go deeper, and I know you've only got a couple of minutes. There's an emerging leadership crisis in this country because you need a leader to want to grow and develop other people. You need a leader to be on a crusade and a mission and feel that he or she and everybody they influence or are influenced by is a part of a very big higher purpose to add value. It's a longer story, and I know you've got this much
We're out of time. Yeah, no.
But it's beautiful.
What parting words do you have? If you want to start a business, just in one clean sentence, what is your advice?
My advice is find a business that is highly repetitive, that is not just going to make money, but is going to build three things: value for the recipient, residual income for you, and asset value when you're tired of it.
Well, Jay Abraham, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Our next two segments are part of our Bookster segments. Bookster is a website for book lovers and much more, and incidentally, Sarah's company. Our first author is Andy Cunningham, whose book, Get to Aha! Discovering Your Positioning DNA and Dominate Your Competition, talks about the positioning of a business. Welcome, Andy.
Hi, guys.
Nice
Welcome.
to see you again.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
So what is positioning?
Positioning is the art and science of establishing real estate in the mind of a prospective customer. So you have to push all the other stuff aside in their heads and put your product or company there.
How do you even start to do that? Like our lives are
Read
so
my mind,
busy
Sarah.
these days. It's just like,
Yeah.
where do you even? How do you get there?
Well, it is a process, and that's what my new book is about. It's called Get to Aha, and it explains the process, but it goes through what I call the 6 C's. I won't delve into all of them, but the first one is the most important one, and that's the core, and that's your understanding what your core DNA is as a company. If you understand what your core DNA is, if you know what you're made of, you can make something of it, and that's the first step.
Wow.
So speaking of positioning, you know she helped roll out the first Macintosh computer with none other than Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
What was that like? Talk about
insane.
positioning with Mr. Jobs there.
So
You said also, just to add to this, I heard that you were fired 5 times, right, Mr. Jobs, as well.
Yes, but that means I was hired 4 times.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, he was challenging and difficult, but in this day and age of the Harvey Weinsteins and all of that, his agenda was incredibly pure, and it was very refreshing to work with him. He was hard, he was nasty, but he was also inspiring and visionary and a genius, and he made me better at what I do. So this whole positioning thing kind of started with him.
Does it kind of like blow your mind when you think about where you were then compared to where you are now? Like how Apple's changed, but also your trajectory, running your own business and, writing your book.
Well, I did actually, so I worked with Steve over the course of 2 different things. One was the Apple stuff with the Macintosh, and the second one was his launch of Next and acquisition of Pixar. And when he did Next and Pixar, I had started my own company. So I'd already had my own company for the second half of my tenure with Steve. So it's been a long journey, but it's been a great one, and I've had this positioning process on the burner for a very long time. I've been doing it for 15 years with clients, and I finally decided to share it in this book, which is really a step-by-step guide on how to do it yourself. And inside there's tests on how to determine what your DNA is, how to determine what your genotype is, and a little Mad Lib exercise at the end to help you to guide you in the development of a positioning statement.
How cool is that? I just heard on the way over here, you're supposed to find your purpose. Like, this was on the radio, they were talking like, everyone needs to find their purpose, and that will ultimately lead you to success. Is that kind of what the DNA is about?
Yeah, it's like a human. You know, if you happen to be like an amazing piano player, but you don't know it, and suddenly you're given a piano and you sit down and you suddenly kind of get it, you understand that in your DNA, you were meant to be a piano player or a basketball player or whatever it is, or a journalist. Once you discover what that is, you can actually make something more out of it and leverage it. And the same is true with companies. You know, companies are just like people. They're made up of people, they serve people, and yet we've been treating them for decades, centuries, like they're something else other than a human thing, but they're not. They're very human, and they have DNA just like humans do, but it's a lot simpler than human DNA.
Okay, so the audience is weighing in and they want the scuttlebutt. What's your favorite Pixar movie?
Oh my gosh! So I have to say, Toy Story is my favorite Pixar
course,
movie. Of
mine too.
course, of course. Actually, my really favorite one. I don't know if anybody knows this one, but Luxo Jr. was the very first demo movie that John Lasseter and Pixar made, and it was spectacular. And I don't even know if it's available online,
So-
but it was great.
So you talk about
Cool.
companies. Maybe this is more of a Sarah question, but I brought up this topic, so you're gonna have a follow-up question to this. You know your positioning, you know your DNA, but you have a business in Silicon Valley, and you're a woman. We talked a lot about this in our past
Yeah, I
interview. Being a woman in tech.
Yes, we did talk about that.
Tell me, you had a very unique take on that. Tell me about your opinion about diversity and women in tech in general.
Yeah, so this is very interesting. I came to Silicon Valley in 1983, and women were, first of all, it was a much smaller place, but women were every bit as equal as men, and they were every bit as prevalent as men, and there were no issues. There was none of this bro culture, nothing. And over the last 30 years, we've gone backwards. It's the most depressing thing. Now we've got this bro culture, and we've got, sexual harassment in the office, and really, that really wasn't going on when I joined. And I have to say that working for Steve Jobs, he was so not that. He was so exactly the opposite. It was all about the great products and all about building a great company, what he called insanely great.
And
Are you
maybe-
surprised, Sarah?
No, I mean, I kind of think maybe the people now have too much time on their hands, and they're like, oh, let's if you're not focused on the product itself or on the company, then like a lot of things can happen, and drama can start and things like that. So I would say, I can only imagine what it would be like to work for Steve Jobs, but I don't see him handling any of that well. He would just be like out.
Absolutely. I mean, literally, his level of tolerance was quite short. That's why I got fired 5 times.
But
You
hired
seem
for
like a
it, but
joy.
hired. Yeah, you're incredible.
That's
Absolutely.
Fortunately, I came back.
And why would you keep coming back? I would do that.
It's
If
like
I
an
was
abused
inspired by
puppy,
something.
huh?
Yeah,
Keep
but,
on coming back, yeah.
And by the way, you were a part of a huge part of history. You know that.
Well, that explains why I kept coming
Yeah.
back. I mean, when you're part of something that is changing the world, tempers flare every now and then.
Of course.
And if it's just a momentary flare of temper, you get over it. And you have to, if you're on a journey that is something really big, like helping someone like Steve change the world, all those things don't matter. They really don't matter.
So,
so cool.
fast forward to today, Andy. How do we get rid of bro culture? That's what Facebook is asking us.
Well, first of all, unfortunately, there are not enough women in engineering. So that's a fact, and that's a problem. Because when you build these giant groups of engineers and they're all men, they turn into fraternities. And it would be the same with women. If it were all women, they would turn into a sorority. So what I think we have to do is we have to bring women in other kinds of roles into those groups of engineers. So I think it's okay to have a culture builder or a marketing person sitting within the group of engineers to just offer some balance. And by the way, it also offers diversity of perspective. So you want diversity in all respects. And I think if you start populating these groups of men with some women, even if their job isn't engineering, I think it would help a lot.
Okay, baby CEO, you
Incredible.
get the last question.
All right. If you could give anyone some advice who is just starting out in the Valley or in tech, what would your advice be?
Well, naturally, my advice would be if you're starting a company, if that's your question, it is really to understand what your position should be in the marketplace, because there's so much product market misfit going on that if you don't understand the market and how the product fits into the market and how to describe that, if you don't understand your role and relevance, you're definitely not going to make it.
And then just a quick question. Sorry, I know you gave me one, but I'm taking 2. And I get to interview you later. So
Oh, cool.
More.
She's a great interview, by the way.
Oh, I can't wait. You guys check it out. Shameless plug. So what made you take faith, that leap on that when you first were hired with Apple, right? There's a lot of companies out there. That are like, in that startup stage. What made you decide to?
Well, by the time I actually joined an agency called Regis McKenna, and the job was to lead the team that launched the Macintosh from the PR side of it. And the reason I did that is because Steve had already established himself, and Apple had already established itself as a company that was changing the world. I mean, let's face it, the Apple I changed the world, and then the Apple II changed the world again. And then when we heard Steve was working on this new thing called the Macintosh, it was pretty clear he was going to do it yet again. So, to be a part of a team like that, it's just amazing. And to be in an industry when it's so young and so fresh and so vibrant, it's just, there's nothing like it. It's incredible.
Well, Andy Cunningham, esteemed author, and we'll be on Bookster later. So if you want to know
Thank
more,
you.
come to Bookster. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
So speaking of Bookster, we continue our Bookster segment with our next author. His name is Alan Adamson, and he wrote Shift Ahead, How the Best Companies Stay Relevant in a Fast-Changing World. So Alan, some organizations and companies adapt, while others just die.
Become your father's Oldsmobile.
Yeah, exactly. How does that happen?
Human nature. I like to talk about a lot of companies are faced with being in Marty Crane's chair. That chair is comfortable, and familiar is comfortable, and change is always hard. So gravity keeps many people just, I did it yesterday, it worked pretty well, let me do it again tomorrow.
But what about so when I first moved to New York, I worked for a company that was here for 100 years. It was an aftermarkets auto company. And I went in there and I was like, digitize everything, digitize, everyone needs to digitize. And they were like, no, like, you're an idiot, no. What about the companies that have been around for 100 years and they're doing great, sales are multiplying, but like down the road, there's Amazon,
Yeah, and that's, the bigger the company, the more successful, the more vulnerable they are to being shifted out of business.
Yeah.
And it's harder to change. The top sometimes need to know we have to digitize, junior people coming in, but then there's a massive middle that says, worked pretty well last year, let's just keep doing it.
Yeah.
The audience is loving your cover.
It took a while for the
Copy
design
over
team to
here.
get that, get the paper fold exactly right.
This lady over here sees a lot of
Very
book covers.
pretty, yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm going to use a Sarah question since you used mine. What inspired you to write the book?
The number of companies coming up and saying, can you help me? We're no longer relevant. People aren't buying our product. Our sales are down. Our profit is down. And of course, by the time your sales and profit is down, it's almost too late. You're almost out of gas. And so why don't companies get ahead? Why don't they shift earlier? Lots of reasons, lots of road barriers, and finding out what those were and what drove success was a really good research project.
What companies or industries do you think are dying and need to be restructured?
Well,
or
there are a lot. The journal is full of them. In fact,
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
We know.
I had a great conversation with Hasbro, and they actually shifted ahead. And they shifted ahead based on actually something your last guest said, which was they brought in some Hollywood DNA. The current CEO came out of Hollywood and injected that Hollywood DNA into the toy business, and they transformed themselves into a different type of toy company. In fact, now they're making a bid for Mattel because they, even though Mattel's right in LA, they never absorbed any of that entertainment DNA that was right in front of them.
Wow.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, don't we see a lot of that more, pulling CEOs from different sectors?
Different
and
sectors.
just kind of injecting that type of, those norms into a different industry.
Right, leadership is key. If you're not able to see laterally and see what's around the corner, and it's really hard, predicting, back to your previous guest, predicting what will happen is pretty easy. People knew the computer would change, and if you watch 2001, they had iPads on board that 1968 film, but the trick is when. And if you get when wrong, it doesn't matter if you had what right. And so, part of it is right time, right place, and leadership is key.
Wow.
Sometimes don't you change too fast, though? Because I see a lot of people pivot. Like in journalism, it's like, pivot to video, which, granted, we are video here, yes. But, that's damaged our industry a lot.
Well, you need to be good at what you do. Ultimately, people say, oh, let's try that. And they fail. It's the right idea. We need to get in that business. But they don't execute it well. Because either they're going too fast or they're a little ahead of their time, or more often than not, a little bit behind the
So
time.
how do you know if your timing? How do you know to get your timing right, or how can you get a good read on your timing?
I think you need to have a little bit of the famous Andy Grove quote: "Only the paranoid survive." If you believe that you're going to be out of business tomorrow, and also Bill Marriott said, success is never final. And the biggest challenge is once you've arrived, I'm successful, you do your thing, and you take your eye off the ball. And if you always have a little bit of, all right, yesterday was successful, but I'm going to be out of business tomorrow attitude, you'll be far more successful in staying relevant than if you just kick your feet back and say, I'm a big success.
So, Alan, someone says these businesses aren't dying; they're restructuring.
Well, that's really right. In fact, today, big news, GE is restructuring. And the bigger the company, the more industrial its focus, the harder it is to move pieces. They knew 2 years ago that they want to be an internet company. They moved the headquarters to Boston. So the leadership knew. But getting the rest of the battleship to turn around is not quick and not easy and often painful.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, what advice do you have for, I usually say millennials, but what advice do you have for baby boomers who are leading all these industries that need to restructure?
Don't give up. Persevere. The biggest challenge a lot of the companies face is that they're in golden handcuffs. What they're doing today is profitable, and what tomorrow is not yet profitable. And getting the company to make what we call an asymmetrical bet, betting on tomorrow, even though they'll be better off in the short term this quarter, still making their old Kodak film and not worrying about digital. So, young people need to stay focused on the goal, and sooner or later you'll get the timing right.
Great advice.
Great advice. Alan Adamson, author of Shift Ahead. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
joining
David.
us.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Pleasure
you.
meeting you.
Absolutely. Our next two guests work for the Royalty Exchange, the leading online platform for buying and selling royalties. Pretty interesting, Sarah.
Yeah, I
I'm
like
interested
this.
in this one. Jeff Schneider and PJ Milkus are here to discuss how their marketplace works. We have lots of questions. And how they've brought transparency to a historically private process. Royalties.
Hello. Buying and selling royalties.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's. I would say first, even step back and understand kind of the investment thesis. Is that this is an asset class that has been around for a long time. It'll be around for a long time. The copyrights on royalties last for 70 years beyond the life of an author. So they're long-lived assets. And the music business, after the introduction of Napster and iTunes, really hit a rough spot, and it's really transformed. And so now we're at a point where investors are showing a lot of interest in investing in royalties because of the growth in the music space.
Wow. So I've heard, and this could be incorrect, but I've heard that for publishers, right, they make the majority of their money from royalties. Do you think that that's true?
Well, so publishing is, so if you think about it in the process of how music's created, first it's kind of written and the music is created,
Yeah.
and then it's performed by a performing artist. So the publisher is kind of that initial creation of the work between the lyrics and the music. So a lot of their income is through royalties from the end production of the song.
Okay, interesting.
So, PJ, how'd you get mixed up in this?
Oh yeah, so thanks for having us on. Obviously, I saw basically what the amount of demand that investors and that basically was out in the marketplace for music royalties. I mean, it's been incredibly interesting since joining the firm, since joining Royalty Exchange earlier this year. It's an interesting situation. I've been in business development, sales roles for over 10 years. For a little bit over a decade, I was actually on Wall Street here in New York. And I decided to uproot my life and move out to Denver to join Royalty Exchange based on just the growing amount of interest in investing in royalties, the fact that you're obtaining uncorrelated income that's uncorrelated to the stock market, uncorrelated to bond markets, commodities. And like Jeff alluded to, the music industry is booming. Thanks to digital streaming, the growth of technology and advancements in technology, there's a lot more revenue coming to royalty owners than there has been in the past, different sources, and it's really a quite interesting time.
So how do you guys find out? I just want to make sure I understand the process from kind of like start to finish. So somebody makes a song, they publish it on like Spotify or iTunes or wherever. You guys, like where do you guys fit into that mix? Like early on or later?
Yeah, good question. So ultimately what we're working with are artist performers. It's actually the broad ecosystem of musicians and creators. So oftentimes we're not working with the mainstream artists. We're working with like a large ecosystem. There's hundreds of thousands of people out there who have helped write a song, produce a song, or they manage the artist. And they all have royalty income streams associated with the music you hear. And so almost wherever the music you hear, whether it's on the radio or on Spotify or in a movie or a TV show, all of those payments go into a more centralized space, and then they get distributed out to the rights holders. So what we're doing is we're not necessarily a part of the royalty process itself. What we're doing is helping these creators be able to finance or monetize their careers by selling a percentage of their back catalog. So we're really flexible in terms of having them, come to us with kind of an end goal. So a lot of our creators say they want to build a studio in their own house so that they can produce more music. They'll come to us with an objective. We'll have a look at what they have, and then what we do is connect them to investors.
So you help musicians in the end.
Yeah, in the end, that's really, musicians have historically been taken advantage of. I mean, I think, a lot of people are aware of the situations and deals that they've gotten into. But in today's world, as decentralized listening habits have come across, they have the kind of pendulum of power is coming back to these musicians. And you have, hundreds of thousands of investors. We have about 20,000 investors on our platform. Wow. But these investors are looking for yield. They're looking for kind of long-term cash flow that's not necessarily correlated to the stock market, and they're finding that in music royalties.
I think one thing that I'd also like to mention, that one of our major goals and missions at Royalty Exchange is alleviating the frictions that have traditionally existed between buyers and sellers of these types of assets. And what we're really looking to do is bring transparency, liquidity, and basically price discovery, just more of a marketplace type of situation to the exchange and the transactions around royalties.
So if you're a musician, last question here, if you're a musician, what do you need to know in today's world? What has changed? We had a former Pussycat Doll here on not too long ago, and she was telling us that back then the deals were a little lopsided. So today the landscape is a lot more flat. But with this flat landscape, there's a lot more options. What do you say to young artists?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the main thing to understand is that the control and the pendulum is swinging back. They have with social media, they can produce and own a lot more of what they historically couldn't. It used to be that if you wanted to get any sort of distribution, you had to have a deal with one of the major publishers or labels, because the only way you could get on the radio or get into 1,000 CDs, that the CD store can only keep in inventory. But now, you can do all of the ground game yourself. In reality, the music business, you do have to do a lot of the ground game yourself. But by developing a social following and doing, getting out and doing live performances, you can really start your career that way.
Basically, they have options.
Cool. Jeff and PJ from Royalty Exchange, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So next we welcome Jennifer Streaks. She's a finance expert. She's here to talk about topics she thinks every American should be mindful about, including debt, healthcare, how to save for retirement, and how to save money on everyday bills. We're just getting set up here. I didn't know you were that tall, Jennifer.
Yes, I'm tall.
We've been corresponding for so long and we have yet to meet. Hello.
Yes, hello. So great to finally meet you, David, in person.
In person, yeah. We've been talking for quite some time. So saving money, something we're all very interested in.
It's very important, especially now. I mean, you have people that are being laid off still from jobs. You have graduates that are coming out of school and they don't have jobs at all. The student loan bubble. We have to talk about that at some point, David. I mean, you have so many people graduating with just huge student loan debt. So I think it's so important right now more than ever, to find out how to handle your money, how to save money, and just everyday spending. Because that's what we spend a lot of money on. Just being here in New York all the time, the cabs, the transportation is hellacious here.
You live in DC.
I mean, I live in
That's not cheap
DC,
either, yeah.
but at least we have the metro.
I spend money on.
Yeah, so everyday spending is what's killing you. Just food, transportation, like you said, saving for retirement, just basic elements.
How do you save on those things, though?
You have to find ways to cut expenses. And I get so many people that talk to me about that. Your cable bill, your telephone, your cell phone bill. You would be surprised what you are paying. And since we do a lot of online bill payment now, so many people don't get the paper in the mail anymore, and you need it because that's when you see all of those little charges that they add in that you need to call in immediately and say, hey, I'm not paying this. What is this? I mean, just even understand what goes into your full bill that you pay every month. And so once you do that, you'd be surprised how you can find 30, 40, 60, even $100 to start saving on a regular basis.
I did this thing called bill trim, and they renegotiated my cable. Have you heard of that?
Oh,
yet?
yes.
Yes. Have you heard of that? I was really surprised that my cable bill's down to $44 now.
Oh, that is awesome.
I had to pay them 25% of my savings up front to negotiate the bills for me, but they've actually
After that-
renegotiating a lot of my bills.
It's becoming a trend now, as it should be, because you're just throwing away money. As much as I love Starbucks, I have to force myself not to do it every day because it's $5, $6 every day. That's like $30 a week. That's your savings right there.
Yeah. True.
I'm guilty of that.
I know.
I need you to come in my life and tell me.
Yeah, just organize your money for you. Organize your finances.
So how did what is, well, I have a few questions, but what is the number one thing that you're seeing, particularly millennials, do that is just like the biggest no-no? Like I can think of a few, but what are you seeing?
Millennials don't cook.
Okay.
They're out every
I cooked
night.
this morning.
Or they're picking up.
I did actually. I cooked.
Or they're picking up food on the way home all the time, and that is just killing you. You can buy food and just stuff your cabinets in your refrigerator and just cook, even on the weekends. That's the thing, the brunch. Oh my
brunch is
gosh, brunch is a
expensive. Yeah, but
killer.
you're from DC. That's the whole social
That is a
scene is
brunch
brunch,
social
yeah.
scene thing. And I try to tell people you've got to get over brunch. You've got to get over Uber. And I am guilty of Uber and Lyft.
Oh, I know.
It is so easy, and I don't have to drive my car. It is just the greatest thing. But I mean, when those little charges come through, it's like 20, 20, 20, 20, 20. Yeah. And the next thing you know, I'm like, oh my God, that was $200 this month just on Uber alone.
Yeah.
That's craziness.
Especially
So,
if you have a car.
and I have a car, right?
How about, like alcohol? I
Yeah.
mean, the amount of money that people spend on alcohol
drinks.
is alarming.
It is. I mean, and I'm at a hotel for this. I'm up for 2 days. Do you know one drink was $17?
Oh, that's not that bad. That's like, thank you very much.
Are you serious? I couldn't believe it. And then a tip too. And I said, oh my God.
Was it good?
It was worth it. But still, just the idea of one drink. So, yeah.
So how do you, so you have this advice on how we can save money. What do you do with that once a person realizes all the things that they can save on, or is it like a constant every day you need to be thinking about how you can cut back, or what's your advice?
I think every day you should be thinking about how you can cut back, and that money needs to first and foremost go into an emergency fund. So if you can sort of put together 6 months to a year of your expenses.
Oh, geez.
Yes, people. You'll be set, because if anything happens, if you have to find another job, at least you have that cushion. If you get sick, if you break your leg, if you're in a car accident, at least now, you have that cushion. But if you only have 3 months, or if you're living, oh my gosh, paycheck to paycheck, anything can happen to you. You may have to rush home. If I needed to rush home from DC to South Carolina and just call American Airlines and get a ticket, it would be like $800 because I'm calling the day of. Those types of things come up, and you need to have money saved for, the eventual.
Well, Jennifer, we're out of time, but hold up your book before you leave. Yep.
Here's my book.
Thrive
It's on Amazon.
Affordably, people.
Come
It's
on,
by Jennifer
people.
Streeck, available wherever you buy books, which
Yes.
for me is Amazon. But thank you so much.
Thank
it was
you,
so
guys.
lovely meeting you,
So
and we'll have to have
great.
you back, okay?
Thank you so much.
I love the
course.
title, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, next we're going to talk about a pretty interesting topic. It's called ballistic protection in public spaces. Do you know what that is?
I would think it means how to avoid bullets. In
Yeah, I
public
know. Not
spaces,
exactly a
which is
comfortable
terrifying.
topic right now, but actually there's a company called Amulet Protective Technologies, which manufactures ballistic barrier technology, and they actually hide it in commercial furniture and in architecture.
I want it everywhere.
So it's everywhere.
That's what I want. I want my whole bookstore office to be bulletproof.
So Jeff Isquith and Morgan Muchnick are both here to talk about this technology. Welcome to you both.
Hi, good morning. Thank
Thank you very much.
Right.
So not a topic we want to think about a lot.
No, and we're like we're like having fun over here, but it's actually a pretty serious topic.
It's very serious. It's very serious. But at the same time, you know, when you think about what's happening in the world, it's really about putting something between you and a bad situation, like an active shooter situation. You hear so much about active shooters and blasts and things like that. We're part of the security infrastructure. We're part of the security world. And there are means to protect people that a lot of us aren't aware of. I mean, you have a lot of video going on, a lot of monitoring, that sort of thing. But what's really transpiring and taking place currently is coming up with ways to protect people in the public space from events like that. There really isn't anything in the public space, with the exception of ourselves.
There's been a lot of innovation around safe rooms, high-end condos and houses, and that's been going on for some time. But there's really been very, very, very little innovation around how to establish layers of ballistic protection in public spaces, in a way that doesn't create a sense of foreboding. If you go to school or you're in a hospital, you don't want to feel like you're walking into a demilitarized zone. You don't want to feel like there's barricades everywhere. So how do you sort of mitigate the natural desire to protect our people, but still create the sense of openness and a normalcy to day-to-day life? And that's really the origins of this company, is how can we create a way to work with existing furniture that can add layers of protection far, far greater than what exists now. Because movies lie to you, right? Like in a movie scene, you see someone get in a big shootout, and they'll jump behind the sofa, and then they'll wait for all the bullets to pass, and they'll go up and they'll take their turn shooting, and then they'll duck behind the sofa. But in real life, the sofa is basically like paper, and it rips through you. In a realistic movie scene, everyone dies in the shootout. Every single person dies. I know it's terrible, but it's true.
Yeah.
So people think that if you hide behind your sofa or your chair, you have some protection, but in real life, you just don't.
I mean, the protection would be hopefully that they couldn't see you, but like if they saw you.
Right, but they're spraying machine guns around, and you're behind the sofa, or even drywall in a wall. Even walls, you shoot through walls, it's going to be nothing.
So, yeah, that's true with drywall.
How common is this?
Not at all.
Not common at all.
Not common at all. Actually, the company was started with a vision of protecting people after seeing children killed, Sandy Hook, and all these events taking place, the Aurora movie theater, etc. And the idea was, quite frankly, everyone on the team decided that we were tired of watching people be killed and injured. There's got to be something that can be done. And we essentially brought together the best of the best in the industry: ballistic technology, architecture, design, interiors, and we pulled together all of these people to come up with a way to actually integrate ballistic barriers into furniture so you don't see it. But when the pop, pop, pop of gunfire goes off, your brain engages and you duck and cover. It's instinctive. That's what you do.
So would it be like, I mean, I'm just thinking like school desk, movie seats, classroom doors. Yeah,
That's exactly right.
Like,
One of the biggest innovations we're rolling out in the moment is working with a partner company called Arconis, and Arconis makes one of the biggest companies in the world that makes basically the seating systems at airports, and many other areas as well, something you would never think about normally. And we're working with them to put a version of their seats with our ballistic protection inside of it, but you would never know it. So for example, a minute ago, you had shown some of the clips of the renderings. And if you look at those clips, we sort of have a cutaway to it, so you can see our branded stuff. It would be, you wouldn't see it that way normally, but we show it so that you can see how it would be seamlessly inside the seats, and you wouldn't know it. Even like these chairs, or you can put a little layer inside this, and you would never know it's even there.
Oh, wow.
And then, God forbid, if something happened, and you would do. You know, Jeff is from Arizona, and the origins of the story come a lot from when that terrible shooting with Gabby Giffords, the Democratic Congresswoman from Arizona, was shot. You know, Jeff was about a block away from that, and it really sort of affected him. Now, that's sort of when he sort of speaking for himself here, but who sort of began that sort of intellectual process of trying to find bring technology to bear to a very vexing policy problem. You know, guns, the politics around guns are very, very divisive and challenging. And what's nice about this company is that we sort of go around the politics.
Yeah.
And say whether you want to ban guns or give everyone guns or somewhere in between, everyone supports
Saving lives.
and layers of protection. And that's what this technology does, is it just basically says, okay, forget the politics of it, let's protect people and then figure it out later. You know, so.
Well, Jeff and Morgan, it was great having you on, but we are out of time.
Thank you very much.
If your audience can just keep in mind, though, we just launched recently, the past few days, a WeFunder effort to start to grow the company, take it to the next stage. So if anybody can just visit the website or take a look, it's a very innovative way for people to, if they want to buy in.
Yeah, what's the website?
Amulet Protective Technologies,
Okay.
and the website is amuletbb.com.
For ballistic barriers, amuletbb.com, and all the information's there.
Perfect. Thank you
great.
so much, gentlemen.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you for
it.
having us.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So switching gears, our next guests run a grassroots organization dedicated to promoting awareness and generating funds to meaningfully improve the lives of ladies right here in New York City. Kira Copperman and Angela Severiano are here to talk about their organization. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having us.
So tell us about the organization.
So AWARE, as you said, is a grassroots organization. It stands for Assisting Women Through Action, Resources, and Education.
Acronyms.
Acronyms. So we work with one charity a year, and we do three things with that charity. We raise money for them, number one, and then we do an awareness event. So we help build awareness for whatever the issue is. And then we also do a hands-on event. So we work very closely with our charity partner, and we get to know the recipients of the funds that we are raising.
Very cool. So who's the charity partner that you guys are working with right now?
Well, right now we're working with New Women New Yorkers, and this is a wonderful organization that supports women, refugees, and immigrants and helps them basically get their feet on the ground.
So does that include just language, housing, everything under the sun?
It's mostly for job readiness. It's mostly helping them find some resources for resume building, for interview skills, but partly it is helping them get their feet on the ground in terms of getting access to some of the resources available.
So Angela, right?
Angela, yes.
Yeah, I could tell the last names, the Italian last name. How did you get involved in this?
Actually, through a close friend of mine, Rachel Justice, we were brought together by our kids. Our children are best friends, and she runs this organization. She's founded it with Kira and a group of leaders in New York. And basically, she just brought me in little by little, and I was very involved in nonprofits in the past. And it was amazing to me to see the impact that they were having in New York City, where actually they're on the ground, working with the women, helping them. Last year it was a homeless shelter, it was West End residences, and we were like there all the time, helping them with food, helping them with clothing, helping their kids. It was just unbelievable to me, and there is no middleman, so it's like we don't have any rent that we're paying. It's like all of the money that we raise goes directly to our cause.
Wow. And is it just located in New York City, or are you guys thinking about going expanding, or?
Well, we've had a couple of other chapters that have formed, but there's one in Connecticut that's extremely active, and they follow the whole model that we have. It's really, a lot of us felt like we wanted to, including Angela especially, we're all professionals, and we do this in our spare time.
Wow.
And we felt like this was something that we could do, and whether people can be 5 minutes or 5 hours or 5 weeks to be involved, it doesn't matter. Whatever they can do is great, and we want to just welcome everybody who wants to be a member or volunteer. And one of the other things was we felt like there's all of these great, wonderful nonprofits that have big dinners and charity events and dances, and many of us very shiny and get all dressed up. And many of us looked at each other and said, okay, we actually want to be involved. We want to get to know the different people that we're working with. And we've done that. We've had some great relationships that have been built over time with these partners. We had a women's veteran residence that we worked with, and it was wonderful. We ended up going and spending a day with them. We had one of our hands-on events was basically pampering them. We did nails and hair and massages, and then we sent everybody to a Broadway show that was donated to us. But we ended up about 2 hours into it having a dance party. Someone put on music and everyone just started dancing, and it was great. Everybody just was having a great time together, and we really got to know them. We got to hear their stories. We got to show them our support.
Wow.
And that's really what this is all about, is just having those moments and being able to really help in as many ways as possible.
Because so many of the charities, it's like you're kind of, whoever you're helping, it's like you don't even know who you're helping. You just go to the event and you wear the dress and you show up, you say hi, you take pictures, and you're like, I hope the money is going to a good cause.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you don't, sometimes you wonder, like, I wonder if we, instead of spending this money doing this great extravagant thing on this, if we just helped the people that we're supposed to be helping.
That's exactly.
Maybe.
Well, speaking of dresses, Angela, someone liked your dress on.
Gorgeous as always, right?
But Kira Copperman
Very bright.
Kira Copperman and Angela Severiano of Aware. For more information, visit their website. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having
Thank you
us.
for
Really
having
appreciate it.
us.
Absolutely. Next, we actually have a friend of mine. Her name is Lawrese Brown. She's an educator. Yeah, I know Lawrese. She's a communications coach, a learning development coach, and a very tall lady. She's as tall as me. She also teaches improv for young adults, so she knows she's here to entertain us since you're an improv teacher. What's up, Lawrese?
Am I taller than you, David, actually?
Yeah, you are. You and I are about at eye level.
Yeah. 6'3", that's right.
Wow, that's
6'2".
amazing.
Oh, see, just a little bit, just a little bit. We want to give
I
accurate
need to wear my,
information to the
my
viewers.
man heels to catch up to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I have my heels on today.
Amazing.
So today I'm here to talk about my educational company, C-Track, how that came to be. And what we do at C-Track actually is we partner with high schools to teach students the skills that we know employers increasingly care about. So what
And
does that
that is important.
And that is important. And you know why? Because there's a lot going on in education. I know you all featured something on STEM. We talk a lot about the gig economy. And what employers keep saying is, you know what? We can teach you the hard skills. Tell us, come to us coachable. Come to us talking about, as communicators. Come to us able to work in a group. Come to us thinking about how you think, critical thinking. All these things help with complex problem solving. So
how do you do that? Because I know when I was in high school, I was just, I wasn't a brat. I was like, I would like to think I was coachable, but no. Like, I was like, they don't know. I know better. Like,
Welcome to being 16.
So how do you teach a high schooler how to do that?
you bring it exactly from your touch point. So a lot of what's frustrating about high school for students is it's so like, you have to know this. Let's focus on history from the subject. Let's focus on all these, you just need to regurgitate details. And what we do is we say, okay, what do you care about? That kind of allows us to dig into the apathy and get into relevancy. So it's like, okay, why don't you care? And I've had students say before, adults just don't get it. And sometimes they really don't. At the same time, it's helping people understand, okay, these platforms that you use, you are communicating, you're exchanging ideas. How do we take that and then also bring that meaningfully to the workforce?
So, Lawrese, one of the things that impresses me about you is that you have incredibly good presentation. And
I'm very cute.
Oh, yeah. Well, needless to say, we're not blind here. But, in terms of, presenting yourself, I feel like you teach improv, you have very strong presentation skills. What are your suggestions for millennials who are just trying to make an impression?
Fail. Actually, the reason why I got into improv is because I was like, oh, Oprah and I have the same birthday. I actually have a picture of Oprah in my bag. So Oprah and I have the same birthday, January 29th. And I remember thinking, if I'm ever going to be like Oprah, I have to be comfortable making mistakes. And I think that's something that's missed because in tech, we see, okay, this is happening quickly. And I think what millennials need to do is to understand that we're all building muscles. And actually, this is a lot of the reason why I'm so passionate about C-Track. I was a good student. I was told if you work hard, if you get good grades, you come out and you should be successful in the economy. That is not true.
Yeah.
There is no linear pathway. And it's the soft skills, asking questions, building relationships, being able to communicate what you can do. Those are the things that make you successful. So I would say, you know what? If you mess up, it's okay. It's growth and being okay with that instead of saying, oh, that means I'm not good at it.
How do you communicate a failure, do you think? Or I think even communicating what you can do. I feel like communication for me is something that's very difficult. So what's your advice?
On communicating a failure? I think you want to put it in the framework of, okay, why does this matter? Because we know that a failure is not permanent, right? We all make mistakes all the time, whether it's getting deep in debt or getting fired from a job or even just, saying the wrong thing. It's putting in the framework of growth. And that's why I think that growth mindset book is so popular right now. It's because we all make mistakes. And actually, in this time of accelerated uncertainty, we're going to keep making mistakes. That's what we're all here to do. And how do we use that as saying, you know what, this is a tool to learn more, to gather more information, and to then actually be able to solve the problem.
Lawrese Brown.
Can I drink this water?
I think someone else might drink it, but oh, it's fresh.
It's
Actually,
fresh.
Lawrese,
Yeah,
it's
you
yours.
Question just for me.
Lawrese, we're out of time, so take your sip of water right now. Lawrese Brown. from
I am.
CPAC.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Oh,
much.
there you go. There's your sip of water.
Oh, bold.
Bold,
There you go.
bold. Yeah, don't forget what you're watching.
Promo there too.
Thank you.
Up next, we welcome Robert Ball. He's a singer, songwriter, and actor, and his sound includes soul, neo-soul, jazz, and easy listening. He's going to have to explain the difference between soul and neo-soul to me. His career spans 18 years, and he's here to talk about his musical journey. What's up?
Hey, how are you?
Great, how are you doing?
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So, musician. I have no musical ability, so you're going to have to talk to me like...
Not a problem.
Do you know anything about
No,
music?
I wasn't allowed to do music until I was like, my sister was like a musical prodigy.
Ah, you're
I
twin,
was a
right?
sport, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
We had to
okay,
go
okay,
like
okay.
this.
So you right, split
But I
paths.
love music, so yes, I would love to learn more about
So,
this.
so tell us, soul, neo-soul.
The way I describe that, soul is classic soul, which is what would have been described as R&B in the past, but now we have R&B and we think very urban pop. Neo soul would be artists like Jill Scott, Maxwell, D'Angelo. Soul would be artists like Aretha Franklin, Donny Hathaway.
So I love Aretha Franklin.
So, musician, how do you do it? How do you survive? How do you create a career out of it?
Oh Lord, it's tricky. And I have, I can't say that I've perfected it, but for me, it's a balance between two things. It's a duality of being a working singer and being an artist, and not everybody is that. And I have to make that distinction sometimes, because you have people who are working singers who are, for example, on Broadway, or background singers, or wedding singers, cruise ship singers. And I've done all of that, not Broadway yet. And then you have some people who are just artists, and they might work their 9-to-5 job to support their artistry. I've been able to do both, where I'm a working singer and I use that money to invest back into my artistry to create my own music, as you've seen. Yeah.
So as a musician, you've been doing it for 18 years.
Mm-hmm.
What have you seen in the way that where your music is living? How have you seen that change since you started?
It's very interesting. Well, I really only seriously started investing in myself as an artist, I'd say in the last 5 to 6 years.
Okay.
Prior to that, again, I was just a working singer from background singing, studio work, musical theater, weddings, cruise ships, everything. But the industry has changed dramatically. I used to sing background for artists who were signed to major labels or independent labels, so I've seen the shift in that. I was on the cusp of major deals in the past as well, but that doesn't happen anymore. And so me re-navigating and learning the industry, how you work as an independent artist, how you market yourself, and in this social media age, how to really use that to work for yourself.
So how do you adapt? Because it seems like as a journalist, as an artist, as a business person, we all have to adapt to these new norms.
Absolutely.
Not easy, is
No,
it?
it's not easy. Paying attention, listening, watching, learning, and trying to stay on the cusp of what's happening, which is not always easy, but once you've caught a hold or a wind of what's happening, diving full force into it. I remember when Twitter came out, I was like, oh, I don't want something else. I don't need any more social media. My friend said, oh, you need it. And then Instagram came out, and as soon as it came out, I said, okay, I'm going to jump on this, and I'm not going to have somebody convince me to get into it, because you have to just remain current.
Such good advice. That's such good advice. So how is your Twitter and Instagram doing now?
Twitter not so good, but I've left that one alone. Instagram's doing pretty well. I got a lot of good traction, and somebody taught me a while ago that it's not about the big numbers and the superficial numbers. It's about the slow and steady growth.
Yeah.
Because for me as an artist, I know that if I post something or if I do something, that people are going to show up and support, because these people are genuine, solid supporters. They're not people that I've paid for. So it looks like I have 20, 30,000 followers. I have solid numbers.
That's awesome.
I see our social guy nodding behind the camera. He's like, yes, preach.
Full support. Yes.
So if you want to build a following, if you want to reinvent yourself, if you want to do all of that, what is your advice?
Be consistent. Be true to you. I believe that honesty and vulnerability speaks volumes, especially in terms of the arts, and I think it breeds in every genre, no matter what the business or industry is, but definitely in the arts. I think vulnerability and honesty speaks so much. So do that. I think traction, so being aware of what people are liking, what people are gravitating to you, about whether it be videos or a certain type of picture or a certain type of comment. Some people post inspirational things all the time, and that gets them traction. It's posting different things and seeing what really gets the traction.
So Robert Ball, singer, songwriter, actor, check him out. Thank you so
Please
much.
do. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Last but certainly not least, we have Amadeus. He's the CEO of Platinum Boy Music. He has many credits to his name as a multi-platinum record producer, including the theme music for ESPN Sports Center and Diddy's MTV and VH1 shows. Welcome, Amadeus.
How are you guys? How are you guys?
Sports Center. Even I don't watch ESPN, and I know that music.
Yes, it's early. You gotta be up early. Musicians, we stay up late. Sleep during the day. We're vampires. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
So tell us about your journey.
Oh man, started in fourth grade playing drums.
Fourth grade?
Yeah, fourth grade, and it's funny because I really wanted to learn the saxophone and the trumpet, and I was sick on the day that I was supposed to go in and choose that instrument, and my mom kept me home, and it's funny because my mom never allowed me to stay home from school, so I'm just kind of puzzled on why she didn't allow me to go that day. But the day that I went, the following day, the only instruments left was the violin and percussion. I grew up in the Bronx, you know, in the projects, and I just didn't envision myself walking through my projects with a violin case. So I chose percussion, and once I walked into the room, it happened to be drums. Fell in love with drums, never gave up since. Was the first freshman on seniors band and ran the jazz band and did all of these different things. It turned into producing and production. I was in high school when I produced my first record that came out on the Cradle to the Grave soundtrack in a movie. And now, fast forward, 15, 16 years later, produced for over 70 artists, ranging from J-Lo to French Montana, Chris Brown, Keisha Cole. I've toured with Trey Songz as his music director and tour drummer for the last 10 years. I also have a residency at the #1 hip-hop club in Vegas, Dre's. We have a Music 101 college tour. We visited 30 schools, educating people and the students on the music business. I'm just multitasking as best as I could.
Sound busy there, Amadeus.
Yes, I just landed from Vegas yesterday. Slept for a few hours, and they said I had to be here at 9.
You made
Tell
it.
us about it. Neither of us are people.
Okay.
We're pretending here.
Okay, good. So we're in this together.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so you obviously love the drums, right?
Yes.
And did you know when did it click? Like, oh, this is something I'm gonna be doing for the rest of my life. Like, this is my career.
I went in the studio. I had a family friend, and he allowed me. His name is Buck Wild. He's a legendary producer as well as part of the Bad Boy Hitman team. And he took me to a few studio sessions, and I think Busta Rhymes is in one session, Missy Elliott, LL Cool J, and this was years like when I was a teenager. And I just saw the process of like production and producers working with artists and stuff like that. And I just fell in love that night. And I remember making the decision that night, like, this is what I want to do. I want to become a producer. I want to be the guy behind the scenes, creating music and melodies and drums. And it just kind of just made sense as a musician already, as a drummer, to just make beats. Because, drums has everything. I mean, production has everything to do with drums and instrumentation. And that was my area. So it just made sense to me.
That's cool.
So what is your advice for people? You've had to work pretty hard to get where you are. I imagine nothing was given to you.
Nothing.
But you make it look glamorous now.
Well, thank you.
Oh, I'm like, just came back from
There's my camera right there. Thank you. Where, I didn't know where to look. There we go. Hey, how you doing? Everybody out there, all right?
You make it look glamorous now, but it wasn't easy, right?
No, and it's still not. Even producing for over 70 artists and touring the world and doing all of these amazing things. It's very challenging. The challenging part is the desire to keep going, to keep pushing. There's a lot of people that say no. And still, even to this day, that say no, that try to close
Even with that
door.
resume, like, turn on ESPN, you're going to hear my music.
That matters. That the resume matters and is appreciated by fans and people like yourselves who appreciate music and love artistry. But your colleagues and the people of the music industry and the business, it's like, okay, you did that yesterday, so what? Like I just produced 5 songs with my team of producers on Chris Brown's new album, right? And it just released on Halloween and everything like that. But amongst the colleagues in the music business, like, okay, that's cool, but now what?
Yeah.
So it's always a thing of always working and finding something new and creating something new. You know what I mean? So.
Do you ever get worried about, like, I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, and I feel like what you're doing is very entrepreneurial,
Yes.
although you're very established, much more established than I am.
Thank you. No, stop.
Oh, well, I'll get there one day. So do you ever get worried, like, one day the business will stop, or, like, and how can you kind of ensure that it doesn't, that you have?
I love that question. For me, music is I'm very passionate about music. I love music. Music will forever live. If the music business ended tomorrow, today, I would still create music because it's what I love. I didn't know nothing about it becoming a career or making money, anything about that when I first started. I just loved to do it. You know what I mean? But now it's turned into a business for me, and it's how I provide and take care of my family. So it's different for me now. But I would forever create music. You know what I mean? When you're passionate about something, you never forget. I mean, you never give up. You never throw in the towel. It's days that I get discouraged. I don't want you to think that I'm a robot, but it's days that I get discouraged, days that I feel like throwing in the towel. But that passion and that drive that I have for creating music and the music that I've already created that help change lives or save lives, or somebody can say, hey, this record that you produced, helped me when I was going through this, and I turned that on, and you're the reason, or this song is the reason why I'm still here, or I'm happy, or I'm positive. Like, there's no other feeling.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amadeus, you're putting some kick in my step for the rest of the day.
Okay.
After this, I have to go to an office and, get a lot of stuff done. So I always like having exciting guests especially for the last spot, because it gives me,
Awesome.
a little bit of motivation. Sarah here has a huge staff herself.
Okay.
And has a lot to do today.
Yes.
Is it giving you energy?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Listen, I'm going to give y'all this energy. I'm going to pass it on, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to get back in the bed. No, but I'm happy to be here. This is amazing. Myrna, thank you for having me. My partner over there, Uncle Mike, is there. I'm just excited to be here, excited to have this platform to be able to just encourage people and push people. Like, life is challenging, whether it's music, whether it's, being an entrepreneur, whether it's having your own business, whether it's having a dream. We wake up every day, and we had a dream last night. What that dream is up on you. Could have been, about that handsome guy you was looking at. It could have been about that girl you saw walking down the street, or could have been about, you want to be a musician or a producer or a successful CEO or a stylist or a makeup artist. You can do anything you put your heart and your mind to. Just never give up. And that sounds really cliche, but you're looking at a gentleman from the Bronx. Let me look in the camera. You're looking at a guy from the Bronx. You're looking at a guy from the projects. You're looking at a guy that had to step over, crack vials and gunshots was on the corner. And my mom timed me to go to the corner store. You don't have to be where you come from. And I'm an example of making it out of where I come from. And I love where I'm from. I love the Bronx. I love that. And that's why we go back and we show you, hey, I made it. What's your excuse? And I have so much more to do. I don't want to say, I don't like that word made it. I've arrived to a level, but there's always another level to get to. So challenge yourselves at home to not just be comfortable where you are, not to just be happy where you and what you have accomplished, but shoot more. Keep going. They say sky's the limit. I disagree with that, because if you can go past the sky. So if you can go past the sky, then how's it the limit?
Yeah.
Think about that.
Well, Amadeus, we are unfortunately out of time, but that was inspiring. So
thank you. Bowl TV. See, I got a Super Bowl jacket on.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Giants is not in it, but maybe next year.
As always, we'd like to thank you for watching Bowl Business. I'd like to thank my co-anchor, Sarah Hill from Bookster. Without Bookster working with Bowl TV and Jen FKD, the show wouldn't come to life week after week. Another special thanks to our hardworking staff. We're taking a break to celebrate Thanksgiving next week, but we'll be back Tuesday, November 28th. See you then.
Bye, guys.